Hurricane Harvey, it's taking aim at Texas as emergency officials start ordering mandatory evacuations along the Gulf Coast.
That hurricane rapidly growing in size and strength, barreling through the Gulf and headed toward the U.S. tonight. Harvey becoming a Category 1 hurricane just this afternoon, 85-mile-an-hour winds already, and still growing. Expected to be a Category 3 when it hits. Urgent warnings going out, evacuations underway at this hour, flights already being canceled. Families stocking up for what could be nearly 3 feet of rain. And if the forecast is right, it would be the first Category 3 to make landfall in the U.S. in more than a decade.
A monster named Harvey is creeping up on the Gulf Coast of Texas. When it comes ashore late tomorrow or early Saturday, it could be the first major hurricane to hit the U.S. in 12 years, with winds over 125 miles an hour. Storm surges and as much as 30 inches of rain could bring what the National Weather Service calls life-threatening floods.
Well, Manny, you are right in the path of this storm. The area is supposed to see catastrophic flooding with up to 30 inches of rain. Set this scene for us. What are you seeing?
Well, right now we're seeing here in Port Aransas what authorities were hoping to see, and that's people leaving, turning into a bit of a ghost town here. There are still some people in this area that are packing up or just getting their final view of the water. But we did have an officer come up to us in our media trucks here and say, I just want to make sure you're media because we really want everybody else to leave. So you're really starting to get that sense today, I think, that this is a serious thing, a serious storm, serious hurricane, and that people need to start heeding the warnings.
Watches and warnings are posted up and down the coast. Texas Governor Greg Abbott issued a disaster declaration in 30 counties. And gasoline prices surged to a 3-week high as at least 2 refineries in Corpus Christi were shut down. Manuel Bojorquez begins our coverage.
Along the Texas coast tonight, people are boarding up.
Tightening at the bottom really tight.
Piling sandbags around homes and businesses, and leaving store shelves empty as they stock up on food and water. All in preparation for Hurricane Harvey, expected to make landfall as a Category 3 and cause potentially catastrophic damage. Some towns like Port Aransas issued mandatory evacuations. Others like Corpus Christi have only called for voluntary evacuations. Mayor Joe McComb.
We are recommending in the strongest terms that if you live in those low-lying areas that you get out, and you begin to get out now.
Dionisia Cervantes and Harold Page are doing just that, leaving their new home on Padre Island with only their safe and some artwork.
We just bought the house. We've only been in there, what, less than 30 days?
It's kind of sad because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if we're going to come back to a home or what damage we're coming home to.
The last hurricane to hit Texas was Ike in 2008, which packed winds above 140 miles per hour and killed 113 people in the U.S. Powerful winds aren't the only danger. Storm surge, water pushed on shore by the force of the winds, is the greatest threat to life, responsible for nearly half of hurricane fatalities. For the first time, the National Weather Service issued an official storm surge warning, covering most of the Texas coastline. Surge levels could rise up to 12 feet north of Padre Island. That still wasn't enough to convince Amy Watson to evacuate and leave the restaurant she manages.
I don't want looters to come in after it hits and all that, so I just want to stay around and keep an eye on everything.
Is there anything anyone could tell you to change your mind and say, be safe and get out?
Probably not.
Wow.
No, probably not.
The predictions are very serious. Meteorologists at the National Hurricane Center say they expect Harvey to be a major storm, a Category 3 at least, with winds topping 110 miles an hour by the time it makes landfall late Friday night into Saturday morning. The target area, they never want to be too specific, but anywhere from the central part of the Texas Gulf Coast up to the Houston and Galveston area. If predictions hold, Harvey will be the first major hurricane to hit the U.S. in 12 years. Then the Hurricane Center says it expects it to stall and dump heavy rains for days. People are getting ready for this storm, and they don't have a lot of time left, filling sandbags, stocking up on water and gas, covering their windows and doors with plywood. Our chief meteorologist, Rick Reichmuth, is here. This thing just I mean, yesterday it was just a little thing.
Yeah, it's a tropical storm. You know, we've gotten really good at forecasting the direction where storms are going to go. We're still not that good at forecasting intensity of storms. And so, you know, we have known that this is kind of the target area for about 3-4 days. We did not think it was going to be this strong, but all environmental conditions are such that the water's very warm. There is nothing really in the upper atmosphere to disturb it. So we think it is going to strengthen. The Category 1 storm, a 3, not at all out of the question that it could be a Category 4 storm making landfall. We thought we were talking about a big rain event, which we are, and maybe not as much a hurricane wind storm surge event. Now we're talking about both. So there's kind of two problems to this. This high pressure is going to move into the top of it. And so you see these models, they all kind of come up here to the coast and then do that. They get stuck there. And so it's going to meander around for probably 5 days. So we're talking about rain from late Friday, probably into the day on Wednesday.
39
inches around Port Lavaca. This is a Euro, which is a really reliable model. But when you see these kinds of numbers being spit out, that's a Euro, the American version of the forecasting. Kind of the same thing, but you get the idea, the same area. This one goes a little bit farther back in, so towards Austin and San Antonio Hill Country, all that way inland, getting all of this rain. And think if you need to evacuate the coast, which you need to, now you think, well, where do I go? You can't move 50 miles inland because you might be in a situation where there's inland flooding that's catastrophic. So you need to go 300 or 400 miles inland, which for a lot of people, that's economics of that is a really difficult thing. Where do you go? Where do you stay? All the people on the roads at this time. So this is really, we're talking about a landfall tomorrow night. You got to get out of the way right now.
Very fast. 12 years since a major storm hit the U.S. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's really rare to go that long. We've had stuff that's gotten very close. We've had Cat 2s make landfall, Matthew last year, but no major hurricane hitting anywhere in the U.S. And this part of Texas hasn't had a major hurricane in 47 years. So it's people that have not seen anything like this in a long time. That storm caused catastrophic damage there along the coast. This one, as strong of a storm, but this inland flooding situation, if you have 10 inches of rain in one spot, it can cause flash flooding in your local area, but it's going to run off to the space 5-10 miles away. If you have this big of an area getting that kind of a rain, that water can't get out of there quickly at all, especially with all this just very low-lying area. We're talking about a wide swath area of Texas here with flooding.
We're keeping you updated on Hurricane Harvey, which has strengthened quite a bit today. You can see the center now of Cat 1 hurricane, 85-mile-per-hour winds approaching the southeast coast of Texas. As of 5 p.m., winds are at 85 miles per hour. It's moving to the north-northwest at 10 miles per hour, and pressure has dropped. That means the storm is strengthening. It is forecast to continue to strengthen through today, tomorrow, Friday afternoon into the evening hours, a Category 3 major hurricane. That's the forecast with 125-mile-per-hour winds. Right now, sometime early Saturday morning, late Friday night, mainly early Saturday morning, landfall near the Corpus Christi area as a major hurricane. We have not had that happen in the United States since 2005. And then it will slowly fall apart just barely over land. So initially there's going to be the wind and the storm surge threat as it comes on shore with a lot of wind. Then, because this is Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, right in here, all of that's right in here, we're talking incredible rainfall amounts are possible along where the center is, to the north and the west and to the east. So that's where we're going to see most of the flooding. Now, here are a look at the watches and warnings. Now, these mainly are for winds, and so we've got hurricane warnings from Port Mansfield all the way up through Sargent, just south. Sargent is just south of Galveston. Now, we have tropical storm warnings, Sargent northward out to High Island, and then down towards the Rio Grande on the south end, south of Port Mansfield. Now, this is a storm surge warning, the purple area, pinkish purple here. This is the first time the National Hurricane Center has issued one of these in operation. They used the warnings and watches last year, but this is the first year it went operational, and they now have their first warning that's been issued. It goes from Port Mansfield all the way up to High Island. The worst area will be along the center of the storm and just to the north and east of where the center moves on shore. So that's going to change, but we're thinking now from Corpus Christi up towards Sargent will likely be 6 to 12 feet of storm surge, and that's above ground at high tide. And that number will change. All of what I'm showing you here will change a little bit. So if you're in that area, if you have family there, you need to watch this because this will change over the next 24 hours or so. But it should not change too much. There's a look at the satellite representation. The eye is now forming on this.
With Hurricane Harvey's outer bands already gouging the coastline, the Gulf Coast is in a frenzy of boarding up, sandbagging, and fleeing. A mass exodus now underway in several Texas towns, including Port Aransas, where there's a mandatory evacuation tonight. The storm whipping itself up from a tropical depression into a full-blown hurricane in just a few hours today, triggering alarm bells from Corpus Christi, Texas, to New Orleans, and some very stark warnings.
We are going to, in the strongest possible terms, encourage the residents in the low-lying areas, as they say, get out of Dodge.
Helping folks get out of Dodge, airlines waiving change and cancellation fees for those in the storm's path. In Corpus Christi, they're swarming hardware stores.
Folks are buying sandbags by the palletful here, but the line to pick them up here stretches around the block. Some folks saying it's 3.5 hours long.
Inside Sutherland's Hardware, clerks scrambling.
No half inch at all.
The line for plywood 30 minutes long, customers on edge.
Everybody just went to Code Red and we all came basically just to prepare ourselves.
I'm 65 now and I don't want to die at 65.
In Houston, where the storm is forecast to dump a biblical deluge, shelves picked clean.
There's no more water. There's no more bread. The bread's already running out as well.
Cars lining up for hours at gas stations.
This is the line to get gas. Absolute insanity over this hurricane.
In New Orleans earlier this month, a summer squall flooded streets. There's now concern the city's pumps won't be able to keep up.
We're in a more vulnerable space than we should be in.
Millions of people are likely to feel the direct impact of the storm, but the entire country could be affected. But also in the storm's path, some 20 refineries producing 4 million barrels of oil. But it doesn't take a hurricane to wreak destruction. Tropical Storm Allison in 2001 caused $5 billion in damage.
So let's get right to Matt Gutman live tonight from Corpus Christi. And Matt, they're talking about a storm surge of up to 12 feet.
That's right, David. And just over the past couple of hours, we've also felt this wind pick up here. You may hear it on my microphone. Now, initially, they were talking about 4 to 6 foot storm surge. Now it is 12 feet, meaning the water in the bay here would go over my head, and the waves during the storm would be crashing well above that lamppost.